Well, hello and welcome. Look at these two lovely ladies joining me here. It is so nice to go live again. It certainly has been a while, hasn't it, Trish?
Yes, it
But
has. You look
yeah,
lovely, ladies. It's nice to see you.
it is nice to
You
see
too.
everybody. And so, welcome to those who might join us during the course of this recording or come back and listen to the replay, which will be available both here on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And then it'll also be available to listen to as a podcast. So if your audio is your style, you'll be able to tune in to Connect, Inspire, Create and listen to this episode as a podcast. But Suzanne, welcome. It's so lovely to have you back as
I
a
know.
return guest. How are you?
I am doing well. I totally avoided the whole COVID thing, so we've never
Good.
gotten it. We've
Yay.
been traveling a lot too lately, and so is everybody else out there. So we've just been rocking and rolling this year.
That's so well. It's wonderful to see you. And yeah, I also said we can happily say in our family the same thing. So that's
Here
wonderful.
too.
And
Here too. The
yeah, so
trifecta today. The trifecta.
yeah, look at that. Yeah. So just introducing our listeners very quickly to Suzanne. She comes with over 2.5 decades of strategic communication, employer brand engagement, and internal brand development. And Suzanne is been spending so much time recently, if I'm correct, in spreading this word of finding clarity with your personal brand. So coming from a corporate background, and then moving to working with entrepreneurs. Suzanne, what does the lay of the land look like now? How are you working with your folk?
Well, now that I can get back on live stages again, I love being in front of big audiences and really,
Wow, you do. You
getting
love
them
it.
some training, getting them a good solid hour or more of really deep dive work into really understanding who they are because they are the brand of their business. And when they realize that it's not their product or service, that it is them that people buy, right? That makes the big aha difference for them.
Absolutely. And I know we've got a host of questions that we want to throw your way, and I don't know that we're going to be able to cover all of them. But if people want to find you, Suzanne, other than here on LinkedIn, where else would be the best place they would look for you?
They can find me on Facebook as well and Instagram, but definitely visit my website, brandascension.com, because that has all of my products and services on there and my philosophies. I also have a YouTube channel called Personal Brand Clarity with some video vignettes and all kinds of tips and tricks and techniques on there too. So.
Lovely. Well, Trish, I'm going to hand the mic over to you to go with our first question that we have for Suzanne. And I just want to chat to anybody who's watching us that you can. I know that StreamYard does allow some live viewer comments, so I hope that I see them and forgive me if I miss them.
Absolutely. So, Suzanne, there's so many questions that we could ask in terms of brand clarity, authenticity, putting ourselves into our brand. First question, do you have absolute clarity as to what your brand stands for? And that would be a question for our listeners. And then what would be your advice, Suzanne, to narrow this down for our listeners, for us, to one sentence and be really clear on what our brand stands for? How do we narrow that big question down?
So that's kind of a loaded question too.
I know.
Because first of all, let me just say that so many of us think of our brand in a business or commercialized sense. And I approach brand as the human sense.
Good.
So it is who you are and how you're showing up. That's really your brand. That's what your customers are buying into. So, narrowing it down to one sentence is hard, but that is why I developed a process to help kind of flesh out those bits and pieces, the ingredients of what I call your personal brand presence is DNA. So it's all in your DNA, but taking the time to do that step by step by step to flush that out helps you get clearer because you're writing things down, those attributes that are resonating to who you are. And then you define what those mean to you.
I like that.
Clarity starts coming more and more and more. So then you can end up with a sentence. But I would just say generally, your personal brand comes by doing that deep dive work, fleshing out those attributes. And then you get down to a point where you're developing a mantra and what I call a why statement.
Yep.
So it's like a brand promise. And that's really declaring composing a statement that declares why you think you're here on Earth, right? And that
And
gets
it
down
sounds
to
so
that.
cosmic, but you're so right. It
Mhm.
really comes down to that all-important purpose, doesn't it?
It really does. And it is, you may not be talking about a particular product or service, but your people, your clients and prospects aren't buying that particular product or service from you because of that particular product or service. They're buying it because of you. And they can go anywhere to buy that, right?
So
I
well said.
think that ties me in, Suzanne. I wanted to jump a little bit ahead, but I love this question is, what would your customers miss most about you if your brand ceased to exist? And that just ties in with what you're sharing is, what we do is us. It's
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
we are. And I love, some of those exercises that you share in your book, which for viewers that are watching, you'll have to see how well I have earmarked all the things in personal brand clarity. But
Carol's an amazing student.
some
I
of
was
these
going to
things,
say, I love that kind of student.
some of these things that you're sharing, it's just so important. But the value comes down to you and what your values are, all encompassing. So it's life, it's your family, it's your values in so many ways. But to sit and ponder, what would your customers miss most if your brand ceased to exist? I haven't tried to answer that question. But I'm wondering, what have you heard from people if you ask them that?
That's an interesting one, Carol.
Yeah, it's really will take a deep dive for people to uncover what this is, because you're peeling back an onion. Basically, you got to peel back all of these perceptions that you think others want to believe about you, and really get down to that core of who you are. Like when I think about it, for me, I want to say that they're going to miss someone believing in them right now more than they believe in themselves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Can you say that again?
So I believe my clients or prospects will miss having someone believe in them more than they believe in themselves.
I love that. I love that.
And so that's why they choose to work with me, because I hold their hands through this process, not necessarily through the online course process, but they certainly can set an appointment and meet with me. But when I walk them through my 6-month personal brand development coaching program, I'm with them all the time. And we are what we're doing is we're identifying and defining who they are as a brand through these activities, very specialized activities to get down to that nut, right? And then I help them flesh that out and define what that means for them, not the Webster Dictionary definition of these attributes, but how are you showing up to be this way in every facet of your world? Again, it's not just your job, it's who you are being.
And showing up, just showing up.
Yes.
That statement makes sense.
And when you have a construct to stay within, when you've defined that, then all of a sudden you know what's on brand and you know what's off brand for you. All of a sudden you're staying in your lane. All of a sudden you're manifesting these amazing experiences because it's top of mind for you and you're really driving the bus of your life rather than being so reactive to your external environment.
I mean, Trish, wouldn't you say this ties in with this authenticity? And then the joy.
Yep.
The joy that we can get once we have identified, and I like the way you say that, Suzanne, that it's peeling back the layers of the onion, because it's not instant and it takes some work.
And authenticity is an important word here, because Suzanne and Carol, I mean, this led right into what I wanted to say. Authenticity matters. And the idea, what I just took as an aha moment, was flipping it upside down, leaving the ego, not thinking about what everyone else is wanting, but thinking about your priorities and what you can give out and give back. So, Suzanne, how to align our personal brand with our authentic self, our authentic values? And this is what you're talking about right now, right? This is why it makes, as Carol said, it makes us feel joy to be in the present moment. I mean, it all ties into that strong, empowered, emotional state.
So that's, I think authenticity is a loaded question or a loaded word.
Yeah.
People use it all the time. You've heard it growing up. Your parents have told you, just be yourself. You'll be fine.
Who are we?
You're going in an interview or you're going on your first date and your friends are saying, just be yourself, be authentic. Have you ever stopped to think about, well, what does that mean? for me.
That means me wearing slippers to meetings, and I don't know that that's going to fly, right, in the corporate
Just
world.
because you like to wear slippers doesn't mean that's an authentic way of being, when you think about it. But you like comfort, right? You are very approachable. When you think about what does that symbolism of wearing slippers actually means for you. And I want to say that, authenticity and your brand aren't two separate things.
There's another power statement, viewers and listeners.
Right.
Authenticity and yourself aren't two separate things. That's a big one.
But I love the way, Suzanne, that you also stepped into identifying when Trish said she loved slippers, immediately one could jump into a judging, well, she couldn't care enough to, do something different, but you associated it to positive words.
Yes.
And that was what's so encouraging, so that, if I want to be made to feel comfortable, then Trish appeals to me.
Yes.
Because she likes to wear slippers. And so that's Trisha's authentic self. So the more she shows of that, the more she's going to align with talking to the right people. So would you say that whole personal branding, when we dig back is that our clients need to have similar values as us to enjoy working with us?
Well, I'll tell you,
that's a good question.
I'll tell you that that's generally your best client because you're in alignment, right? You have to work less hard. They appreciate you more and you appreciate them more because you're in alignment with one another. We've all worked with clients that maybe we just took them on because they asked us to, or we felt like we could make the change in them, or we could help them. But we're going at it, month after month, trying to coach them or trying to help them, and they're not budging, right?
Right. It's like a brick wall that you.
Right. So if we had been more attuned and aligned with our own brand, trying to attract, then that wouldn't have happened, right?
And also, I think this is the case, Suzanne. What I'm hearing too, and what just came into my mind is that when most of us have been we've all been at the beginning of a business we started. So when it began, we took on anyone we could. And it felt wonky. It felt disjointed because of what you just said. You're helping, your book and your practice is helping people realize, whether they're midway through their career or starting their own, business, to start with themselves. Because to me, it's like, how could you not, as Carol said, enjoy yourself? How could you enjoy yourself if you reached out, in my case, to an engineer-minded person? Or not that I couldn't work with them on a human level, but you're so right about that. It makes far more sense to start with yourself. What works for me?
I see so many entrepreneurs start in a way where they're just absorbing everything outside of themselves. They look at social media and they see things that they need to be doing, right? And they forget about the being. And so they end up chasing the client because they're wanting or thinking they need to be doing all of these things. They forget who they are. They become so reactive that they start attracting these people that are out of alignment to them. So that's just a given. It seems, I see it all the time. And if you don't start with who you are first and really define that, you'll get there eventually, right? But you'll go through a lot of pain.
And why take so long? I mean, there's people out there that need your services. So the sooner that you move into aligning with who you want to be and bringing in those values and getting clear on your personal brand clarity. I know there's one thing, and I am going to have to refer to a handful of things out of your book, but I just love this with in your book on page 28, if you happen to have a copy of Suzanne's book, what is a personal brand? And your personal brand is just a set of overall perceptions others have of you. And ideally, it starts within your own heart and mind, expressed through your actions and behaviors. And so that's just, Trish, I can't lose this picture of the slippers.
I know, right?
And I have bare feet. So yes, I'm on. But I think it's a South African trait. We don't like to wear shoes. So, so tell me, Suzanne, what does that mean that I'm barefoot?
So you tell me what it means. So when I coach my clients, I'm all about pulling information out of them, pulling their own meaning. I mean, if I slapped on a label or slapped on, all kinds of definitions to them, they would try to fit into that mold. But that's not what branding is really all about. It's not about being something you're not. It's about really, again, unpeeling that onion and taking that deep dive to resonate. I call it the goosebump factor.
Okay.
Right? Once you start getting those goosebumps,
The
because
connection,
you're finding those attributes that really explain or mean what you're trying to express out there from the core. And then you get in alignment with that, then you start manifesting and creating all of these.
And you're living in your truth, so then your truth just keeps going, going in that direction.
Absolutely. And so I just had this conversation with my client the other day about the word surrender, right? The word surrender means one thing in my book. It means trust. It's big. When you surrender and let go, you are in the mode of trusting that all is well, and that you are valuable, and that you have,
and you are enough, right? You're enough.
Right? Practicing surrendering is one of the key points in really letting go of being reactive to your external environment and getting into your own life's driver's seat. Seriously.
That is so well said. So in business, don't you agree, Carol? Or you don't have to agree. But
no, we don't.
And we don't always, which is awesome. But I noticed that in business, for all the years I've been on this earth, one of the first questions a marketing consultant will say to me is, who's your ideal client? And it seems to me what I'm learning from you today is, who are you? Who are you needs to come first. Who are you? Yes. Then given that, how will you choose your ideal client? So like you just said, get in the driver's seat.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
You're just going to attract a bunch of minions that are us, little mini me's. And people that have a little, they're not exactly you, but they have those traits, those characteristics. And that's why you're flushing out those core values and your brand style attributes. And you have to know what makes you different so that you can connect to those people. I don't know why more people don't stop and do this work, because
lack of trust.
You're right.
Yeah.
I guess that would tie me into this when you're saying change how you talk about what you're doing. And I noticed that you use a lot of adjectives that we need to dig in and find those emotions. And I think even, Brene Brown talks about your emotional bank and having more words to describe how you feel and what you do and who you are. So, it's not enough, you say here, to treat your business like a social media page, but be deliberate and decisive about what you're trying to create. And once again, it'll come to words. It's what
our words create our worlds.
Amen.
I truly believe that. And when you expand your vernacular and in a way that is in alignment with what you believe and what your philosophy is, and there's nothing that can keep you from manifesting that experience. So choose your words wisely, right? Choose your attributes wisely so that you can then manifest what you're looking to manifest. It seems so like out there and fluffy and it's not tangible. And that's why people lean to that more tangible side of the doing.
Yep.
But what they're doing is they're overriding the ability to be who they really are. And then it's just fighting against a resistance.
What should be natural, right? What should come naturally.
And let me tell you this, there is no assertion in the law of attraction.
Now there's a good one too. Let's say that one again.
There is no assertion in the law of attraction, meaning if I'm going to do, push, I am pushing it out there, right? I'm not attracting.
There's
pushing it away
for something to come back. Yeah.
Because you're in a sense of lack. Think about it. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do this in order to be out there. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. And you're in this panic state and you can't accomplish anything in to sustain it. You might be able to do it temporarily because you're forcing things, but it's not sustainable.
But Suzanne, there's another aspect in your book that I was just thinking about, besides the words, and this was interesting, is making your personal brand style tangible. So we're changing a little bit, and you were talking about your personal physical space and your office environment
Yes.
and saying, what does that space look like? Contemporary? Is it corporate? Is it traditional, fun, relaxing? And I thought, well, And then you spoke about colors, and I think I might have missed that. That might have been in one of the exercises, was lining up your colors. Could you talk to us a little more about your office space and colors and how that attracts and unpacks?
So your brand style, that's your brand style attribute activity. And that's really helping you to detect words or phrases around your personality. So you can collect that set of personality traits that you can begin making tangible in your environment. And the questions are, if your brand were a color, what color would it be? Because colors are visceral, right? When we look at things, we can feel excitement. We can feel maybe even depression. We can feel different levels of emotion through color.
Definitely. Yep.
So that we want to connect to those things, and that's what opens up Pandora's box to help us further unpack who we believe we are, not who we think others think we are. Right. So there's this great phrase
we'll never know. We'll never know.
Well, everybody has their own perception filters too. So I'm going to challenge you to figure out yourself and not ask 50,000 people on your Facebook page. Right. And whenever I see those questions, like, what do you think of me what are 3 adjectives you think of me when, you think of me? I'm like, oh my God.
If you think of me at all.
You're going to get 50,000 different ones, and that's not helpful. You are the one inside your body. You are the one inside your mind. Stop for a moment, meditate, do the exercises and figure this out, because that's the only thing that's going to get you in your own driver's seat.
That's going to bring me to this exercise in your book, and I love it. So I don't know about yourself, Trish, but Suzanne very kindly gifted both of us with this wonderful book. I've got to get it right on the screen so you can see it, and it's available on Amazon. So make sure that you grab your copy, because it is jam-packed with action items. But this exercise on chapter 2 about identifying your personal brand style, and I actually did this with 1 or 2 of my friends, and it was so much fun.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
If your brand was represented by a smell, what would it be? And so, Trish, if you had to think for a minute, if your brand, I'm going to answer and say what Suzanne's written in the book, but I'll come back to you, Trish, and think if you could think of a smell that represents your brand. But then there's things like a model of a car, what kind of music you like to listen to, if your brand was a line of clothing. So that one wouldn't work for me, because I've never been one to follow brands. I don't even know who they are. If your
just
brand
a style, right? Yeah.
An animal, what would that be? And then the color that you mentioned. If your brand was represented by a color, what best represents you? And I love the way that you step through, you answer those questions, then you look for those descriptive adjectives. And so that's where I was asking you again about that, and then choosing one. So Suzanne's example here in her book is peppermint. Why peppermint? Exhilarating, refreshing, inspiring. And then the one word was refreshing. So I don't know about you, Trish. Can you think of a smell that would represent you?
That requires so much careful thought. I will give an answer to my gut, which I guess is Suzanne's whole point today. We need to really get in touch with that truth. I love that peppermint. I'm a big soaker in the tub, and I love lavender. But I love the uplifting spritzers. I love the tangerines and the citrus, anything uplifting. And I've always loved bright colors, oranges, yellows. So I would have to say those are my go-to. Now, would I have that in my office? Probably just in little subtle things like a tangerine or something, but definitely in your lane there, Suzanne, which is, but I love the peppermint spearmint. I mean, that just makes me feel good hearing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll see some correlation between all the end words that you've chosen, you've brought over to that third column. You'll see some correlation in how relative they are to one another. And that's when you know that you're really in alignment, that you're not all over the board, right? That you really are creating this this kind of distinction that
Yes.
you can then begin to think more about, have top of mind, and really know where you're on brand or off brand. I would play with that a little bit, Trish, in terms
I
of
love
the
it.
colors.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
having some sort of an aromatherapy in your
And
office.
coffee. I mean, coffee,
Yeah.
honestly, the
Mhm.
smell of it, I love everything about it.
Mm.
I do a lot of decaf as well, but
Yeah.
I will play around with that. I mean, what a great thing for our viewers and our listeners to play around with, because since Carol just asked about office environments, if we can surround ourselves, I have aromatherapy here. I love the doTERRA. But any nice pleasant scent like coffee brewing. We had snow
That's
last night.
comfort, isn't
You
it?
did. Oh my goodness, in April. I
We had
know.
10 inches of snow. And so even
10
smelling
inches.
the outdoors today, it was insane, and it'll melt.
Oh
It'll
my,
melt today. But you know
yeah.
that fresh smell? It was,
Mhm.
so those things, I
Yeah.
get that. I love that.
So
Yeah,
in
the
making something like that tangible, sometimes we'll go down the road of, like I work with a lot of real estate agents, and sometimes we'll go down the road of making like a citrus tangible. So their closing gifts might end up being a tangerine candle, right? That they can give, or a set of citrus candles or something like that as a closing gift. So they perpetuate, make tangible those
They
elements.
manifest their own reality, as you were saying, with tangible things.
And that's
I
how people
love
remember you. Right.
Love this. So, listeners, if you're wanting to work through these exercises, Suzanne, do let everybody know where they can find you, what's on offer at the moment, how they can work with you. We'd love to share that. And I will pop those into the show notes for the podcast. So, if you're popping in late or you prefer to just listen to this on audio, do remember to follow our podcast, Connect, Inspire, Create. Click on the link that says subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. And help us get the word out, because we just value so much having wonderful guests like you who bring us back to earth. I mean, it's just so important.
And
So
the visual is really important, I think.
Yeah.
The visual we want to do more of, because you really, to Suzanne's point, Carol, we get the whole feel, the full effect, the visual, the personality, all of that you're talking about. Now, we will have smell-o-vision someday, but
Someday, yes.
right.
To go along with what you're saying about the visual, adult learning, I'm certified in adult learning methodology. I'm a certified trainer. And so when I do facilitate workshops, it's imperative that I have a PowerPoint, that I have a flip chart, that I have these items on their tables for visuals, kinesthetic, and auditory learners. So if you don't have these visuals with your delivery of expertise, you're going to miss like 80% of the population.
Interesting.
In terms of infusing the information and transferring knowledge from one person to another. So that's one thing I just wanted to leave you with, because it's so important to make it like 3-dimensional. Try to make it your brand 3-dimensional.
Right.
And consider every different way that people learn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There's
The
4
different-
modalities that people learn, right?
different
So when
learning
you bring your
styles.
expertise, it's important.
Well,
So-
this has been wonderful. So I'd love to know, do we still find you at brandascension.com?
Yes, in fact, that's where my free personal brand Kickstarter toolkit is. I've got a
Perfect.
Kickstarter toolkit tab. You can sign up for that and start getting some information, some resources and tools.
And then their next step, after they've done that and they want to work with you, they'll find that as well on your site.
Yeah, so right on the homepage and through this Kickstarter toolkit, you'll get more information on the landing page that leads you to my online course for personal brand for real estate agents, distributors, coaches, trainers, speakers, consultants, those types of solopreneurs who are the brand of their business.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, again, I just have to say thank you for coming back and being our guest. And just lovely to get an update. And it just feels so much more, I don't know, alive at the moment, and just digging into, I love that part of, yes, we've got to look at our niche, but hang on, let's look at ourselves and unpack ourselves first for that attraction. So
remember, marketing might get your clients in the door, but it's your brand that keeps them coming back.
Love that.
Your truth. I love it.
Love it.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Suzanne.
ladies. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.